Hey everybody, this is a video that I've been wanting to make for some time now, and in this I'm going to go over the basic theory of how you should be positioning Tracer in a team fight. Now, this is something that I think a lot of people don't understand about the hero, and because of this, people tend to get countered by things that they don't really need to lose to. And so you can see here on this enemy team, I've put in a few heroes that are very often considered Tracer counters. So we've got Raynor, we've got Uther, and we've got Varian. These heroes are very often recommended to people in the community as if you see an enemy Tracer, you pick these heroes to shut it down. So in this, I'm going to go over how to play around that, and really just how you should be positioning yourself in fights, given a few things that are pretty easy to deduce about Tracer. So first of all, Tracer has very low health. She's very fragile. She has some self-healing, but she needs to either do it over a very long time with her lifesteal, or land pulse bombs on enemy heroes to do it through Pulse Generator at level 4. So Tracer is also very mobile. And now Tracer, when you put her next to your teammates, like so, like say I were to put her right in the middle of the team, or even, let's say I wanted to auto-attack a bit, so I'm over here. Let's say that, and this is obviously the enemy team on the left side, and this is your own team on the right side, is represented by the green circles. The specific heroes of this, not as important as the specific heroes of the enemy side, so I kind of left them as green circles so as not to be distractions. But anyway, if you stand next to your teammates as Tracer, you're going to take a lot of collateral damage that you didn't necessarily intend to, like say for example, if this Li Ming starts chucking skill shots at you, this Varian is chucking Qs at your front line, or this Blaze is shooting his Qs, his jet streams at your front line. And if you're positioned right behind your enemy tanks or right next to them, there's a decent chance that you'll take damage from skill shots that were already being sent at your team. But if you position more to the side, like what I'm doing with these two alternating positions here, if you position more to the side, then enemies now have to choose whether they want to shoot a skill shot at you, whoops, that's supposed to be a brush, whether they want to shoot a skill shot at you that's not very likely to hit because you can dodge it, and they don't really know, it's not 100%, or they can choose to not shoot at you at all and go for the higher accuracy targets of your front line and the mass of people that is the rest of your team. So now, you have suddenly just greatly decreased the accuracy of the enemy team by positioning more on the side of a fight rather than next to your team. So one of the major rules of Tracer is don't stand next to your teammates. And then another thing, and this is, I always think this is kind of funny, another major thing is, yes, you don't stand next to your teammates, but you also don't stand next to the enemy team. And you might be like, well, Mockery, that's obvious, but you go and you look at Grandmaster Tracers, and you look at HGC Tracers, and you'll see a lot of times they're standing in range of multiple targets for basically no reason. And this is very often why auto-attack heroes are considered a counter-tracer. So, the ideal Tracer position is that you're in attack range of just one person who does not trade very well into you, like a Blaze for example, who doesn't really do a lot to you in a 1v1, and you're positioned, let's see here, I'll use a little purple arrow, so you two are trading back and forth, taking damage, and you're positioned all the way on the opposite side of the fight from the person who hurts you most. So in this example, that would be Raynor. Li Ming, her abilities, you can dodge them. She's not going to do a whole lot to you in a 1v1 situation, but Raynor, you actually will have a really tough time trying to out-trade a Raynor. So the answer is you don't have to. Tracer has some of the most control of her positioning of any character in all of Heroes of the Storm. So auto-attackers, you really don't have to be against them. Say, for example, this Raynor was up here, and, you know, he starts walking through here and he goes up here. You can just, yep, and now you can harass this Varian. And then you might be like, well, Mockery, what if Varian charges you? And it's like, okay, Varian has to come to you to charge, so there's a little bit of a delay there because he has to travel the distance, and if you're really fast, and if you're smart about knowing that the charge is coming, you can actually drag Varian all the way back into your backline with 2 or 3 blinks, and now Varian follows you the whole way, because the second he presses that E, the instant he presses charge, his position is no longer in his control, it's now up to you. So you can now drag Varian into your backline, and now all of a sudden, Varian is where he doesn't want to be, he's over here, and he's just getting melted, and he dies. And then you might be like, well, Mockery, I can't do that. You know, like, I don't know how to do that. I don't have the reflexes. And to be honest, a lot of times, I don't have the reflexes for it. But that's okay, because a lot of playing into Varian, and this also applies to Uther, which is why I've included him right here, a lot of playing into Varian is positioning yourself in such a way that even if you do get charged and taunted, it's not super impactful. It's not the end of the world. Let me just clear out some of this right here. Get these arrows out of the way. So say this Varian does charge us. He goes right here, and he taunts us right here. He's now over here in the fight. Well, that isn't super impactful because that only holds you in place. So if you're only ever auto-attacking Varian from a safe position, not on top of the rest of your team, but nearby, on the other side of the team fight from their damage, you're realistically not really in danger from taunt. There are very few exceptions to this, such as Medivh, who's got a ranged point-and-click CC, and that's why he's one of the actual best Tracer counters, or Stukov with his lurking arm, long-range silence, that he can use to follow up on taunt. In those matchups, you need to play a little bit more conservatively, but here, this is a situation where even if you get taunted right here, you're not really in that much danger, and if you do pull off the blink to pull Varian back, even one blink, Varian is now all of a sudden in your front line, maybe even in your back line, with no ability to do anything, no escape, and he's just going to get wrecked. That's why I'm not really afraid of a Varian when I play against one. And this Uther, a lot of people say that, oh, Uther counters Tracer, you go in, you get stunned, and you die. The thing is, you don't have to go in. You can just harass with auto attacks, and you're perfectly fine. And everyone's like, oh, well, if you're playing Tracer just to auto attack, you should have picked a different hero. And that really isn't true. That really just is not true. Because this hero does very high auto attack damage and trades some of the best into melee heroes in the entire game because of the extremely high uptime on her auto attacks. She can sit here and auto attack on this Blaze when other ranged assassins might not be capable of it, might not be safe in doing it, things like that. So, and then she also gets an insanely big teamfight power spike in terms of damage output over time in Ricochet at level 16. So, I hear that all the time, oh, if you're just auto-attacking the Tracer, if you're just trying to, hit on them from an edge, you're doing it wrong. And I don't think that's true at all. Because while you're doing this, and you're harassing, this Uther's doing nothing. You're getting free damage, and you're a hero that loves getting free damage, and it's building you more pulse bombs, giving you more self-heal, more mobility. Uther's doing nothing. If he's sitting there waiting for you to dive so that he can negate it, he's accomplishing nothing. He has very weak sustained healing, and you're just abusing that. And he's not using his stun, his heals are doing very little. You're now getting free damage, and one of their heroes is just useless. So I don't see how that could possibly be construed as a situation where you're not accomplishing anything. So again, here, the basic idea of Tracer positioning, if we're going to go reset all these, the basic idea of Tracer positioning is to hit the hero that you trade into best, which is typically an enemy melee, while keeping the hero you trade into worst on the other side of the fight. So if we were into this team, Uther would stop us from diving, we don't dive. Blaze has no way to hit us back, and Varian is very free damage to hit on. Li Ming is not as good at hurting us as Raynor is, so therefore the best place to be is right here. If we can manage it. Sometimes you can't manage it, this is also a great place to be. Hitting this Varian, we're not on top of our teammates, because now the enemy team has to choose where they send our skill shots. They either send it at you or waste them, or they send it at your team and have a limit of only 4 heroes they can potentially hit, and you're not taking any damage at all, so either way is a huge plus for you, and all of a sudden, you now have a really good team fight. And of course, this is a way that you play extended team fights. What I'm describing here, this is not the way you play when you have, like, an Anubrak, for example. Let me go pull up one of those. This is just one example. Say you have a dive team, like a whole dive team, not just an Anubrak, but a whole dive team, okay? And you've got like a Grey Mane and whatnot, and the enemy team isolates somebody and tries to go all in on them, then yeah, you're not super worried about sitting on the side of the fight just getting free damage on the tank. Even if you do manage to get a bunch of free damage on the tank, if your team is playing an aggressively forward isolated dive composition, then you're wasting your time by going for that overtime sustain damage. So this is one way to approach fights when you're not in like specifically a burst scenario, but in the vast majority of Tracer use cases, this is how you should be thinking about fights, this is how you should be conducting yourself and positioning, and thinking about who you can go up against. So let me know if you have any other questions, any specific matchups or anything like that, but I think that if you go into your games as Tracer taking this into account, this is something that's going to give you like way more success than pretty much the way I see everybody playing the character. Alright, so go ahead and try this out, and let me know how it goes.